Now, the rings aren't just static, they actually pulse, and the frequency of that pulsing changes based on how threatened the octopus feels, because the nervous system signal controlling those nanomirrors is a graded dial, not just a simple on-off switch. But there's a really critical distinction here that most people completely miss. Those brilliant blue rings, they are just a visual warning. It's a biological alarm bell. The actual venom is delivered through a hard beak, exactly like the beak all cephalopods have. But because the octopus is so tiny, a bite from this beak is incredibly superficial. It's often completely painless, meaning a lot of victims don't even know they've been bitten.
But you have to wonder, why carry enough venom to wipe out 26 humans when you pretty much just eat tiny crabs and shrimp? It's massive overkill, right? Well, biologists think this is the ultimate investment in what they call predator education. The effects of this toxin are so violently unpleasant that a single sublethal dose creates a permanent learned aversion in a bird or a fish. Having this extreme potency guarantees that even the slightest grazing contact delivers enough venom to ensure that any predator who survives the encounter will never, ever mess with a pulsing blue ring again.
So imagine reaching down to pick up a beautiful little shell as a souvenir. You're entirely unaware of what is resting casually inside it. Tucked perfectly into that shell's interior is a tiny, mottled brown octopus, barely the size of a golf ball. At rest, its calm coloration makes it completely indistinguishable from the sandy, rocky background. I mean, it has absolutely no external features that would scream danger to anyone who doesn't know exactly what they're looking for. It just looks like a particularly attractive, completely harmless tide pool animal.
Here is the crucial point, though. Those beautiful electric blue rings, they are not the weapon. They contain zero venom. They are strictly the alarm system. The true weapon is the tiny beak hidden right at the center of the octopus's arms. It's a feature shared by all cephalopods, but here, this beak acts as a precision biological needle connected directly to highly concentrated venom glands.
Okay, but get this. Here is a fascinating evolutionary plot twist that makes this creature even more mind-blowing. This cephalopod doesn't even manufacture the lethal biological weapon it wields. What makes all of this deeply relevant to you, though, is that the blue-ringed octopus isn't just a single, isolated rarity. There are actually 4 recognized species in the genus Hapaloclina, including the greater, the southern, the blue-lined, and Hapaloclina nearstraussii, each rocking their own distinct ring pattern morphologies. The clinical reality of this is just stark. Clinical case studies, dating back to the first systematically investigated fatal encounter in Australia in 1954, along with later cases in Japan and the Philippines, prove that survival is 100% dependent on the speed of medical response and getting on a ventilator. Because of this, knowing how to identify this animal at rest, looking for that small, rounded shape with faint blue outlines sheltering in shells or debris, is literally your only true line of defense.
As we really zoom in on this creature, maybe looking closely at that striking, glowing, deep-sea eye, we realize just how many extreme unknowns remain. Modern science still hasn't answered so many fundamental questions about them. We still don't know their exact hunting techniques, we don't really understand their deep-sea movement patterns, their precise reproductive timing, or the overall structure and health of their global population. They remain a true mystery of the deep.
To set the scene here, this creature is almost impossibly small. Depending on the exact species, it weighs only between 10 and 100 grams. So to put that into perspective, we're talking about something between the weight of a small apple and a large egg. It is perfectly sized to just vanish in a seagrass bed or tuck itself right into a discarded shell. But here is the crucial point. This tiny, golf ball-sized octopus carries an absolutely staggering chemical payload. It holds enough tetrodotoxin to cause fatal respiratory failure in about 26 fully grown adults. 26! And the scariest part? It does this without any known antidote on Earth.
So let's look at how this little guy goes from an unremarkable brown blob to a glowing beacon of death in just milliseconds. The rings are what make this animal famous, but the biology of how they actually produce that color is totally separate from the venom, and it's genuinely extraordinary. When the octopus feels threatened, those faint rings transform. People always say it looks like the rings are glowing, kind of like bioluminescence. But they aren't. They're actually using structural coloration. They reflect light using thin film interference, which is the exact same physical principle that gives you those swirling colors on a soap bubble or an oil slick.
And that physical blocking mechanism is exactly why there's no antidote on Earth for this. You see, a standard antidote usually works by fighting the toxin for a spot on a receptor. But tetrodotoxin doesn't bind to a regulatory site. It physically plugs the hole. and the fit is so absolutely perfect that no known molecule can outcompete it at a safe dose. So while researchers are working on engineered antibody fragments to try and catch the toxin in the bloodstream before it hits your nerves, right now, there is no clinically approved treatment. Mechanical ventilation is literally the only standard of care.
Inside that tiny creature is a massive payload of tetrodotoxin. 26. That is the exact number of adult humans that the toxin inside this single golf ball-sized octopus can kill. Just one individual animal holds enough venom to end 26 lives. And it's currently resting quietly right there in your tide pool.
Zooming into the molecular level, we can see exactly how this toxin works once it's delivered. Tetrodotoxin, or TTX for short, is this complex organic molecule with a three-dimensional structure that has perfect geometric complementarity with the sodium channel proteins of our nerve cell membranes. It physically slots right into the binding site, exactly like a biological key sliding into a lock, and once it's in place, it kills the electrical signal. When a signal arrives at that blocked channel, it finds absolutely no pathway through the membrane and just dies without propagating.
But here is the most psychologically devastating aspect of this envenomation: the locked-in horror. Unlike a lot of other toxins, tetrodotoxin does not impair your consciousness. Even at doses that cause complete paralysis, the victim remains fully awake, entirely aware, mentally clear, as their body just completely shuts down, experiencing the total inability to move or breathe in full conscious awareness. Well, the answer lies directly in that molecular geometry we looked at earlier. The tetrodotoxin molecule doesn't just bind to a regulatory site. It physically occupies and plugs the channel pore itself. It's like a cork jammed tightly into a bottle. Because it doesn't involve a receptor that can be easily blocked by a competitive antagonist, developing an antidote is structurally incredibly problematic. Researchers are definitely trying to engineer antibodies to bind the toxin in the bloodstream, but right now, survival relies entirely on emergency endotracheal intubation and mechanical ventilation. A hospital basically has to breathe for you for 4 to 24 hours while your body naturally metabolizes the toxin until your neuromuscular function slowly comes back. And they are widespread. We're talking a geographic range covering northern Australia, Indonesia, the Philippines, Papua New Guinea, Japan, and extending all the way through the Indo-Pacific to Sri Lanka. These are incredibly common residents of shallow reef zones, seagrass beds, and rocky intertidal areas across some of the most heavily touristed ocean regions on Earth. They live exactly where we love to wade and explore,